Hey everyone, and welcome back to Ontario Cryptids. I'm happy to see that you are all back for another episode. Today's episode will also include some coarse language, but not as much as last week. Also, today I have two strange stories to share with you all. The last one is not typically the kind of story I tell on my channel, but I wanted to share it due to the unusual circumstances leading up to the story. It affirms why we should listen to our sixth sense when your body is telling you to do something, like take flight. Okay, let me stop there. As you know, I'm always looking for great stories to be shared on this channel. So if you have a story that you would like to share in a safe environment, then forward your encounter stories to OntarioCryptids@gmail.com. Okay, you know the drill. Go grab yourself a beverage and get cozy on the couch or chair and sit back and relax. All right, the first story takes place summer of 2017 in Sonoma County, California, and the closest town is Sebastopol. I hope I said that right. Anyways, let's get right into the story. I have no proof of the story I'm about to tell you, but I promise you it's real. It made my husband believe in ghosts and demons, and he cries whenever we talk about it. The story begins on a cool summer evening in Sebastopol, California. I'm 18, he's 20, and we have been couch surfing and living out of our truck for a few months. A common place for us to park was a 7-Eleven parking lot with a couple of 100-year-old cemetery across the street. One night, after watching a bunch of ghost hunting videos, I decided I was brave enough to venture into the cemetery on a hunt of my own. I tell my husband my idea, and since he was bored and up for an adventure, we formulated our game plan. I downloaded an EMF reader app on my phone, and he was going to use his phone as a flashlight. The EMF didn't go off at all in the parking lot or the walk across the street, but 20 or 30 feet into the cemetery, and it started to go off. I've always thought of myself to be sensitive, so I raised my hand and closed my eyes, and whichever way I felt something, I'd walk and the reader would go crazy. I even told my husband, who was skeptical, "Watch this then." And I told him, "I don't feel anything this way." And when I walked that way, the EMF reader was silent. Not even a blimp. When I went the other way, I said I felt things. Sure enough, it lit up again. I smiled triumphantly. Eventually, the reader led us to a small family plot, and specifically in front of the grave of a woman named Eliza Johnson. So I pulled out my video camera and started filming. I asked a few of the standard questions. How had they died? If they were there, etc. When nothing happened, we shrugged and moved along. Eventually, I felt even stronger energy, and it led us to a grave of a child who had passed away at age 2, named Cosmo. And I was always taught that if a ghost claims to be a child, it is a demon. Dread filled my stomach, and I asked my husband if we could leave. When we got back to the truck, I was so excited to watch the video of the grave to see if we caught anything interesting. I put on my headphones, turned them all the way up, and pressed play. And nothing. Nothing at all happened. No noises besides my own voice. No spectral beings. Nothing. My husband puts in the earbuds himself and comes to the same verdict. So I put them on myself again in a futile attempt to find something. And sure enough, this time, clear as day was a voice that hadn't been there before. It was slightly quiet, but certainly there. and unmistakably unmissable. So had we really missed it before? It didn't seem likely. It sounded as though it was saying something along the lines of amazing, like, that's amazing, or it's amazing. I nearly leapt out of my seat. I shoved the headphones back at my husband, who was a blatant skeptic and was growing irritated. He watched the video over and looked up to me. "What did you do to it?" I denied the accusation. I had been right beside him. I asked him what he thought it was saying, and without me telling him what I had heard, he confirmed it. That was when we put on the headphones again and replayed the video. And every time we played it, the voice seemed a little louder and a little clearer until finally we heard the near-perfect enunciation, "I'm Eliza." That's what it had been trying to say, and we looked at each other as our blood ran cold. We rewound the video again, and this time the voice still clearly asserted that they were Eliza, but the video had also changed. Now was the clear face of a woman to the left of the tombstone, as if it were laying down and reaching out. Just a flash of the image and then nothing. We almost tossed the phone. "I don't like this," my husband stated fearfully. He looked like he was going to cry. "Let's watch it again," I prompted. We watched it again, and the image was even clearer than before. We played it again, and this time the figure popped up twice in the video. And when I say figure, I don't mean power of suggestion or some shapes. There was a woman where before had just been pitch black of night behind a tombstone, because a tombstone and grass were the only things in the image besides the night black behind it. I tried to pause it where the woman was appearing, and each time the video would jump back a few seconds, so where she wasn't on the screen. And then when we noticed that each time we played it, the figure looked less like a woman and more demonic. We both began to grow terrified. My husband tells me he doesn't want to watch it anymore, so I start watching it myself. Now each time I rewind and play it, the video is zoomed a little more and it won't zoom out. I replay the video until it's zoomed in, and all that you can see is the name of the tombstone, no grass, no night. We then decided to send a video to a few people to get their opinions. I sent it to my mother and my older brother, and we sent it to our mutual friend, Daisy. We told them what we had been doing and asked them to watch the video. The first time they all said the same thing, that there was nothing there. So we told each of them to play it again and again, and we never told them what we saw, but eventually they all began to hear and see the same things. At this point, we were freaking out. It was literally like something out of a horror movie. That's when my mom messages us something horrifying. She said that the video had changed for her again. She said that the figure was still in the foreground next to the tombstone, but now there was the clear image of an old man standing right in front of me, yelling at me and pointing. But she said it wasn't in a threatening way. It was in a concerned way. Like he was warning us to get away, like we weren't safe there. I tell my husband, and he has to watch it again. He has to see if the video changed for us too. I lay my head in his lap and I close my eyes and plug my ears while he watches the video. While he's watching it, he bursts into tears. He saw the man. My mom told us to pray and to get away from the cemetery. So we deleted the video, and we tell the 3 people that we sent it to that they need to delete it as well. We drive to a church parking lot and start looking up on our phones where we can buy sage and holy water, but it was 3 a.m. in the morning. We stayed in the church parking lot all night, and I don't think either of us slept. We ended up looking up who was buried there, and Eliza Johnson and her husband were the ones there. They had died of old age. The figure we had seen looked nothing like the woman, but my husband and mother are both adamant that the old man they saw was Eliza's husband. I don't get to talk about this story a lot because it upsets my husband, and I get goosebumps whenever I speak the story out loud. I found that I was more sensitive for a period of time after this incident. So I do have other ghost stories as well, but none quite as intense and cinema-worthy as this one. You can choose to believe me if you'd like, but we know what happened to us that night. This last story takes place in and around November 2021. It takes place in Tillamook County, Oregon, and the closest city is Tillamook. I had an odd experience that I can't really explain. It gives me real gang initiation or human trafficking vibes, and I'm left feeling uncomfortable, not for warning people or something. I've since gone back to this location, but there is nothing there to indicate anyone was ever there. I'm a professional mushroom picker, and I have been an outdoorsman for over 30 years. I go to a lot of remote places at a lot of weird times because rain doesn't care if it's day or night. I had plans to go out picking, so I went to bed super early, got up around 10 p.m., and started getting my gear together. I couldn't shake this feeling like I had a dream and that I've stopped at a rest stop and got attacked, but I don't remember having a dream like that. I remember just being uncomfortable that someone was going to come out of nowhere when I pulled over to pee. I just couldn't shake the feeling of seeing the normal places I stop at, but something bad happening. I pull over to pee while driving all the time. I'm on the road a lot with a lot of coffee. So for something like that to just weird me out is very unusual. I'm also armed, so for it to bug me at this level was just unsettling and highly unusual. I'm on the taller side and jacked as fuck, so human beings have never really been imposing in any sense. And past experiences taught me I walk out of those kind of bad situations fine. So I have literally zero reason to have this kind of worry be at the forefront of my mind. I'm driving 22 and I hit Hebo, Oregon, then it turns into 101 just south of Tillamook. I had already pulled over once, but got an unnerving feeling after giving it about 10 seconds and bailed because it felt like people were outside, but I couldn't hear or see anyone. There was just a very present feeling. So I told myself, fine, I won't stop at a pullout or wait for the rest stop. I couldn't wait anymore, so I found a spot that the cars don't seem to pull over at. It's not in front of any houses or paths. There's zero excuses for any human to ever be there. It is perfect. There is no indication other people use it. Around me is a salt marsh, sloth type habitat, wide open plain. No houses around, no mushroom picker's path, no garbage. Nobody has been behind me and nobody came up in front of me. It was just me and the woods, and it had been quiet for some time. I pull over and think, well, okay, there's no way someone is just gonna pop out. It must be crazy or this stress is overwhelming. I'm freaking out over nothing. I reach over to grab my coffee and dig out a sandwich and decide to look up one last time. After all, no one's been there every time I looked. Why do I still have this feeling? Nothing's gonna be there. And there he fucking is. A guy dressed like he just walked out the front door of the club in the pouring rain at midnight on a Tuesday in the middle of basically a conservation level type ecosystem. I couldn't believe it. It was actually happening. Then the dream I remembered suddenly clicked and things started to fall into place, that this situation ends very, very badly, almost like I was actively remembering it before it happened. The memories kind of rushed in a flood, then sped up, met up with how the present was going down, and I saw how it ended if I stayed. He didn't approach my car like he was approaching the passenger side as a concerned citizen or something. He walked into the middle of the road, in front of my car, the place I need to drive. His clothes weren't soaked, and his pants leg didn't have mud from picking mushrooms, and his sneakers, no boots, weren't even dirty. I don't even know how something like this is physically possible to achieve. I don't even think his clothes started to get wet from pouring until I started observing him. I understand how this sounds. I've chosen my words carefully here. His left arm swayed as he walked, but his right arm stayed rigid, and he kept his hips pointed away from me as he approached the car. Just a slew of bright red flags indicating he very likely had a weapon. He wasn't looking at me or my car or my plates either. He was looking at something else, not just one thing. About 10-15 feet behind me. He didn't increase or decrease his speed. He kept moving at the same pace with his arm extended at my car, staring at one thing behind me and shifting his gaze to another thing behind me. I throw the car into drive as he continues to move at and in the way of the car, and I nearly run him over. This has no effect. He is not shocked. He doesn't jump out of the way. I'm about half a mile up the road, and another car comes the opposite direction, and their headlights wash over the area. He's there with his arm out, staring where I just was, like I had never drove away, and he was still actively approaching me. The car gets closer. I move further away, and I look back, and he is gone. I have been sober for over 3 years. Life has been unusually hard these past few weeks, but life was fine when this event happened. I'm not entirely sure what to think of it. It is so strange and unnerving, and having it happened after having such strange, complex feelings has made it feel almost supernatural in a sense. At minimum, I think I was about to get robbed or killed. But the longer I reflect back on this experience, the more I wonder if this person was human or even existed. Or he did, and some extrasensory perception saved my life. All right, there you guys have it. 2 fantastic stories, and they are a little bit unusual. Like I said, it's not, the paranormal stuff I do tend to tell on my channel. And that one reminds me of 3 actually, that I should probably share that I have. But I'd have to write that down and make that maybe a special episode where I tell you of my paranormal experience. But this is not about me today. This is about what you guys just listened to. Very freaky stories. The second one is not, again, like I stated, something I would normally tell, but I thought I would share it just because of its unusual circumstances. Here's a person that's always out at weird hours of the day, and for him to have dreamt of having an unusual encounter and then actually having it, and while he was driving, he would, he didn't want to stop in certain areas because of the preclude of him having these weird, unusual dreams or thoughts of some foreshadowing. It kind of reminded me of what you hear of the folks who tell their stories or send in their stories to David Paulides on his channel, where they have a sixth sense that's telling them to leave or to take flight. And this is exactly what happened to this guy. It almost seemed like it wasn't real, but it was real. Like it was a warning for him to leave, because he himself isn't quite sure if it was a dream or if it actually, not a dream, but if that was a physical person standing there, or if it was some sort of manifestation, or at least that's how I interpreted it. But anyways, fantastic story. And basically it comes down to listening to your sixth sense. And that's why I wanted to tell this story. If you, for any reason, have an inkling, when you're on a hike or wherever you are, you could be on a street, you could be turning down, a road that you've never been on, and you have a weird feeling, listen to your body and leave. That's what I would recommend. But anyways, that's going to be it, guys. I'm going to stop chatting now. So if these stories reminded you of an encounter that you may have had and would like to share, then please forward your stories to OntarioCryptids@gmail.com. I would be honored to share your story on this channel. Thank you guys for listening until the end. I truly appreciate it. Please hit that like button on your way out and smash that subscribe button if you're new to my channel. Have a great weekend, and I hope to see you all next week right here on Ontario Cryptids.